Okay, so our model is trained and completed, right? Our experiment has already run and we see the results here in the details section. Okay, so you see it's already completed. It took 5 minutes, right? And 21 seconds, or let's suppose 22 seconds. Now this is our ML run ID, automated ML run ID, right? And it uses this diabetes dataset, right? Now coming to this best model summary. So if you want to see the best algorithm which performed best, this one algorithm name, right? And if you see the accuracy or the matrices, these are the UC weighted matrices. Okay. Now so we already saw the algorithm name which performed best. Okay. Now this evaluation matrix tells you how better our model is going to perform or is performing, right, on the current validation dataset. Okay, so based on all this information we can see the AUC weighted value, right? Now view all other matrices. So if you see the AUC weighted value is this, but we can also see a lot of other matrices here. Accuracy of our model, AUC macro, all these AUC weighted. This is what it is showing right here. So log, loss, precision, all those things. These are extra matrices that you can always look for. Now coming back here, view all other matrices, right? Select the matrix tab. Okay. If you click, where it is, in the experiment, here we can see this is our experiment running, right? Okay, to go to the matrix you have to click on this algorithm name. Here you see the matrices, right? And which all the matrices you want to see, you can see it here. So here we see precision, recall, ROC, calibration curve, left curve, humility gain curve, all these details, right? Here we see test result preview. Here you see accuracy table, here you see confusion matrix. So these are the matrices which you already saw, right? And then let's go to the explanations. In the explanation ID, view the aggregate importance page, right? This shows the extent to which each feature in the data set influences the label. So pregnancies, age, their inclusion much higher than the tricep thickness and plasma glucose, all those things. Now in the second experiment also, let's see the matrices. Okay, so for this experiment also we can see pregnancy chart. These are the main two fields which are influencing most. Next, deploy a predictive service, right? So how to deploy a predictive service? Now we are in the details tab. Okay, here we see already a deploy option, right? Deploy to real-time endpoint, deploy to batch endpoint, deploy to web service. There are multiple options, right? Deploy the model using the new real-time endpoint wizard. Deploy the model to a web service. So our model could be used as a service, and we can deploy it as an endpoint, right? I mentioned earlier of these endpoints. So we'll click on deploy and use the web service option to deploy it as a web service. Okay, and what else we need? We need to name all those details here. Auto predictive. Let's deploy this as a web service. In this details, so these details are name, description, predicting the diabetes, right? Then we'll use Azure container instance, while we are in testing mode. But when you are deploying your endpoint or model, you need to use Azure Kubernetes service for more reliability and performance. But for testing, for development, you can use Azure container instance. Just that would be fine. Now enable authentication selected, and then use custom deployment asset unselected. Okay, so this will be selected. Now using this authentication key and client ID, based on these authentication credentials, you'll be able to call our model as a service. So we are exposing this as a service, and only an authenticated user can call this service. Okay, use custom deployment asset unselected. And now wait for the deployment to start. This may take a few seconds. Then on the model tab, in the model summary section, observe the deploy status for the auto predictive service. It should be running. So basically, once we deploy, we should wait till our model starts running. Okay, when this shows as a successful, you may need to select refresh periodically. Okay, so we have to wait till it shows as a successful status. Now in the Azure Machine Learning Studio, we have to go to the endpoint page and select that auto predict model that we have deployed as a real-time endpoint, right? And then select the consume tab and note the following information there. You have to use the REST endpoint for your service, primary key for your service. These two things we have to copy, and we'll need that to call that as a service. So REST endpoint is nothing but the endpoint to call our model, and the primary key will be used to authenticate and then call this REST endpoint service. Okay, now note that you can use this link next to the values to copy them to the clipboard. Okay, so these two values we can copy using this clipboard. Okay, so let's deploy it, and let's wait till it's get deployed. So I'll pause the video now. Okay, so here we are in the endpoints, right? We expose our model as a service using this endpoint, and let's go to that endpoint details. Well, I'm in the endpoints page. I'll click on this auto predict diabetes model, right, which is exposed as a web service, and I can see the deployment status is healthy, right? It's deployed properly, and I can go and see the REST endpoint, which will be used to call our model as, which is exposed as a service. So there is Swagger URL as well, which you can use to call for HTTP Swagger based endpoint, right? Here we are using the REST endpoint. I'll copy this and I'll keep this open. Now let's test the deployed service, right? So we have to test that service by calling the endpoint and giving it some data. Okay, so let's go to that. So we have to go to the consume page for auto predict diabetes. Okay, so let me duplicate this tab. Okay, so I am going to the consume page. Here we have the REST endpoint. Here we have the different code, right, to consume this service. We have Python, R, and C# code, right? So this is our service URL. This is our key, our API key, right? And this is to call the service. Now here we have the primary key, secondary key, and then API endpoint. Now it is asking us to go to the notebooks that we have cloned from GitHub, right? So I'll go to the notebooks. Here we have all these notebooks, right? So we are into the get AutoML prediction, right? This is for running the AutoML. It's a service. He is asking for the endpoint and the primary key. We'll place those values here. My compute VM is running, okay, and I'm using this Python 3.0, 3.8 Azure ML. Okay. So now let's put the endpoint. I'll copy this. Endpoint is copied. I'll paste it here, and then I'll replace the primary key. Copy this, and then replace the primary key here. Then I can run this, and I can see the prediction, not diabetic, right, for this patient with all these parameters of the values. So features are added here for a user. Using this endpoint and key, we are giving a patient information like this. Now that JSON data is read here, and then this is being sent as a onto our expose endpoint or the service, right, as a JSON data, and then the response is being received here, and then we are checking whether the prediction result was yes or no from this response. Okay, and If you want, you can print simply the y value as well. So the result was returned as 1, and then we have extracted that result and set it as a diabetic or non-diabetic. So 0 means diabetic and 1 means non-diabetic. If y is equal to 1, then diabetic, else not diabetic. So this is how we can call our model or the experiment in Suppose as a web service and then call it into our endpoints or in the notebooks. Okay, for testing our model with a new data or different data. Okay, coming back to this. So now the next is the cleanup. We stop our endpoints and compute resources so that it will not incur any extra cost. So let's go back to this. So we'll stop the compute resources from here and also from the endpoint. We'll select and delete this. Okay. So now the endpoint has been deleted. Okay, and we don't see any endpoint available here. Also, if you go to the compute resource, we'll be seeing that it's stopping, and at some point it's going to stop our compute VM. Okay, once that is done, we are good to go. Thank you for watching.